West Texas can seem like a mythical place. Murals adorned throughout its border towns show old ways of life, old ways of living, the old ways of the world. And in the late writer Cormac McCarthy's Border Trilogy, we are shown a similar dying world of cowboy fatalism, mystic pastoral scenes, and the changing lives of our two young male protagonists, John Grady Cole and Billy Parham. The trilogy consists of All the Pretty Horses, The Crossing, and finally, Cities of the Plain. The prose McCarthy uses in this trilogy creates an almost mythical, post-apocalyptic atmosphere to the setting the characters inhabit, where Southwest Texas, particularly the Trans-Pecos, becomes a world of its own. Much of my childhood was spent exploring this region of Texas with my father, growing up in the same place these protagonists discover the violence and heartbreak of adult life, and as I get older, these same lessons of adulthood continue to haunt me, as does the landscape of West Texas and the memories attached to it. So this summer, for my Cusp Independent project, my dad and I went out to West Texas along US Highway 90 to try to film something that could capture McCarthy's writing and the world that he built out of the Trans-Pecos. Somewhat paradoxically, I think McCarthy would see this as an impossible task. Film and prose are different things. Additionally, the world of the Border Trilogy takes place nearly 100 years before our world today. But I think that in many ways, you can still see the particular beauty McCarthy creates out of West Texas, and through film you can still believe in it. The changing world of Texas can be shown visually, and from quotes throughout the Border Trilogy, I attempt to evoke the poetic prophecy of McCarthy's writing, showing the world of the past, the world of the present, and maybe even the world to come. The riders sang as they rode, nation and ghost of nation passing in a soft chorale across that mineral waste to darkness, bearing loss to all history and all remembrance, like a grail, the sum of their secular and transitory and violent lives. The landscape of Southwest Texas stretches as far as the eye can see, but throughout the wide vistas of Texas lies a deep and layered history of nations, and as McCarthy puts it, ghosts of nations. There are churches of simple solitude, towering, colorful city halls, like here pictured in Marfa, relics connected to a past of segregation and racial subjugation, and ruins of the quote-unquote mineral waste. Bridges burst through canyons that house relics, landmarks of an older time. As we drove through on Highway 90, I managed to film many areas that seemed to evoke this idea of a mythical past, or one that McCarthy seems to find a historical wonder in. In the false blue dawn, the Pleiades seemed to be rising up into the darkness above the world and dragging all the stars away. The great diamond of Orion and Capella and the signature of Cassiopeia, all rising up through the phosphorus dark like a sea net. This might be one of the most powerful lines in the entire Border Trilogy, particularly because McCarthy gives an ethereal power to the Texan night sky. Once the sun sets and the twinkling stars begin to pop into the black of the night, you will see something like a painting tower over West Texas. Unfortunately, in my quest to capture this otherworldly cosmic view, I couldn't get my camera to actually even get a single picture of it, let alone a video. The best I got was this picture on my iPhone, and these blurry pictures from my camera. Obviously, this really upset me and made me feel disappointed in the face of such a beautiful quote from the trilogy. However, reflecting on this inability to capture the night sky has brought me back to the reason why I love McCarthy's writing. Just as this video started, a photo cannot simply capture the written word or capture what you see in front of you. The Border Trilogy's focus on metaphysics and stories tells us this. In other words, the Texanite sky might just be something you have to see to believe, something you have to read to feel, something you have to face to experience. The sea net cast into the sky shines for all, but it shines for those who come to see it. They looked out over the country to the south, where the last shadows were running over the land, before the wind and the sun in the west lay blood-red among the shelving clouds, and the distant Cordilleras ranged down the terminals of the sky, to fade from pale to pale of blue, and then to nothing at all. McCarthy almost exclusively labels the sun as red, whether it's the red of blood or just simply red, sunsets or sunrises. I also seem to find this hue through image, which captured is the beauty of the Texas skyline through the orange faded against the blues of the sky. In my experience, there seemed to be this similar sky fading into nothing once my clock hit 9 p.m. Field ranged against the skyline rose and dipped like mechanical birds. I've always loved how breezy and simple yet evocative this quote is. I was in no short supply of footage that matched with its comparison. He touched the horse with his heels and rode on. He rode with the sun coppering his face and the red wind blowing out of the west across the evening land, and the small desert birds flew chittering among the dry bracken, and horse and rider and horse passed on, and their long shadows passed in tandem, like the shadow of a single being, passed and paled into the darkening land, the world to come. If the title of All the Pretty Horses didn't give it away, McCarthy finds a particular beauty in the animalistic forces of the world, but also the animal of the world. In my experience, I had no luck finding the true cowboy icon he seems to explore in the text, but in 2 separate days and on 2 separate occasions, I managed to film some horses next to Sul Ross State University, along with other horses you did see earlier as we drove toward Langtree, Texas. The ranges of mountains beyond the plain range on range, in pales of blue where the terrain lay clawed open north and south, canyon and range, Sierra and Barranca, all of it waiting like a dream for the world to come to be, world to pass. In the blue hue of the sky, McCarthy finds mystical dreams, and the passing world. The camera did well at capturing the intensity of color that surrounds you around sunset. Memories dim with age. There is no repository for our images. The loved ones who visit us in dreams are strangers. To even see aright is effort. We seek some witness, but the world will not provide one. This is the third history. It is the history that each man makes alone out of what is left to him. Bits of wreckage, some bones, the words of the dead. How make a world of this? How live in that world once made? The emptiness, and I mean that in a positive light, of Marathon, Texas made me think of this quote, especially as we drove through this Marathon cemetery. The country was all catclaw and creosote on a gravel plain, and there were no fences and little grass. The desolation and solitude that McCarthy evokes in this quote is something I really looked for while filming landscapes throughout West Texas. And in many ways, this is where I had the most luck matching my photographic reality to McCarthy's prose. When they had used to spend winters at the old house in the southeasternmost section of the ranch, the last thing he would hear before he fell asleep at night was the bawl of the train eastbound out of El Paso. Sierra Blanca, Van Horn, Marfa, Alpine, Marathon, rolling across the blue prairie through the night and on toward Langtree and Del Rio. The last of the colors died in the west. The sky was dark and blue. Then, just dark.
Nessuno.
He sat there for a long time, and after a while the east did gray, and after a while the right and God-made sun did rise, once again, for all and without distinction. This quote is from The Crossing, but I find it most effective to conclude our quotes. The Texas sunset and sunrise act as many things in the Border trilogy. A thing of glory, of respite, of catharsis, of impending death, or most poignantly, a thing of universal beauty. On the last night of my trip, I found some high ground to capture the wide range of red, blue, orange, and white that stack atop each other on the Texas sunset. I feel that my best footage, in which the video is played both forwards and backwards to emulate the sky as a breathing heart, matches the tranquility of an inspiring, all-encompassing sunrise and the cathartic death of a sunset. So although this video cannot truly seize the beauty that it begs to capture, my trip to Southwest Texas and the footage I gathered allowed me to revel in the familiarity of McCarthy's world. As we drove throughout the areas of Texas I had spent many years of my youth gazing at the car window, forever entranced by the mystique of the Trans-Pecos. One of the only frustrations I've had throughout this project was doing justice to McCarthy's writing and capturing the literary moment as photographic reality. But in a somewhat fitting and McCarthy-esque fashion, I found that I had very little to no power in manipulating nature and manipulating the scene in front of me, or even, like the night sky photos, capturing the scene at all. It reminds me of one of my favorite lines, of which I've titled this project from, in all of McCarthy's writing. From City to the Plain, McCarthy writes, "The man smiled at him a sly smile, as if they knew a secret between them, these two. Something of age and youth and the claims and their justice of those claims, and of the claims upon them. The world past, the world to come, their common transiencies. Above all, a knowing, deep in the bone, that beauty and loss are one. It seems to find beauty and to capture it are mutually exclusive. Like Don Arnolfo tells Billy Parham in The Crossing, to catch the wolf is to lose it. For the wolf is made the way the world is made. You cannot touch the world. You cannot hold it in your hand, for it is made of breath. It is here I found my answer, and it is here where the project ends. As I've learned from McCarthy's writing, the only thing you can do then, to somehow capture beauty, is to breathe it in.